Imagine for a second, right, that you are tracking a master bank robber. Like, we're talking absolute top tier Ocean's 11 level of sophistication.
Oh, yeah, the kind where they leave no trace at all.
Exactly. Like they've hit vaults all over the world, completely untraceable, and the authorities are just entirely baffled. But then one day you log on to Twitch and you realize this supposedly invisible mastermind has accidentally left their webcam on.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and they are live streaming their entire heist planning process directly to the internet. Like the blueprints, the getaway routes, the target list, all of it. Just sitting right there for literally anyone to watch.
I mean, it is the absolute definition of a self-inflicted wound, a monumental operational blunder by, an otherwise highly, highly sophisticated threat actor.
Right. And so today's mission is to unpack this mind-bending 22-month investigation that completely flips the script on international cyber espionage. We are looking at a massive North Korean hacking campaign, but we aren't looking at it from the outside in. We're actually looking at it from the inside out.
Which is incredibly rare.
It really is. We've got a fascinating stack of sources for you today for this deep dive. There's an exclusive breaking report from Wired magazine, a highly detailed cyber bulletin from the security firm Cypro, and a really interesting consumer protection blog post published by Coinbase. So, okay, let's unpack this. What actually happens when the world's most notorious, heavily resourced, state-sponsored hackers get hacked themselves?
Well, you get the work of a security researcher named Vangelis Staikas. He's the chief technology officer at a company called Kumio. And from early 2021 all the way through early 2023, Staikas achieved something that, cybersecurity professionals spend their whole careers trying to pull off.
Yeah, the Holy Grail.
Exactly.
Right.
He maintained covert, completely undetected access to the active command and control servers being operated by these North Korean hackers.
Just sitting there in the digital rafters, quietly taking notes for nearly 2 years. To understand the sheer scale of this global threat, you first really have to understand the highly unusual way Staikas got his eyes on the inside.
Yeah, he essentially turned their own infrastructure against them.
Right, and the aha moment of this whole Wired exclusive is just dripping with irony because these hackers who are, actively breaching hundreds of highly secure corporate networks accidentally infected their own machines with their own malware.
They tripped over their own tripwires. It's hilarious, but
Yeah.
also fascinating. When malware developers build these complex payloads, they're supposed to test them in heavily isolated environments, right?
Yeah.
Like sandboxes or entirely disconnected virtual machines.
Right, so it doesn't accidentally spread.
Exactly. But somewhere along the line, these North Korean operatives just got sloppy. They executed their own obfuscated malicious scripts on their live personal workstations. And that accidental execution triggered a callback, which inadvertently opened a backdoor into their own local network.
And that's what Staikas was able to monitor.
Yes.
Which perfectly matches that bank robber live streaming their heist on Twitch analogy. Because of this one localized slip-up, Staikas didn't just capture, anonymous data packets bouncing off a firewall.
Yeah.
He got a front row seat to roughly 5 terabytes of stolen data.
5 terabytes. That is an absolute ocean of intelligence.
And even crazier, he got access to their internal Slack and Discord messages.
Yeah, and seeing those internal communications, it humanizes the threat in a very bizarre way. It's essentially the entire operational playbook of a global espionage campaign laid bare.
Because you are suddenly looking at the mundane day-to-day office chatter of state-sponsored cyber criminals, right?
Right. You see them complaining about bugs in their code or passing around target lists, sharing administrative tools, just like any other remote development team trying to hit a Friday deadline.
Wow. And, seeing that Staikas had this god's eye view from the inside, it really brings up the obvious next question. What were these hackers actually doing to breach their targets so effectively in the first place?
Well, the Cypro Bulletin outlines their methodology beautifully. They utilize some traditional attack vectors, right? Setting malicious document attachments, exploiting unpatched software vulnerabilities on public-facing servers.
The usual suspect.
The usual stuff, yeah. But those were almost secondary. Their primary, most devastating weapon was something called the contagious interview.
The contagious interview. It sounds like a bad sci-fi horror movie.
Oh, it plays out like one for corporate IT departments, believe me. The hackers would pose as high-paying tech recruiters on professional networking sites, or even just via direct email. They specifically targeted senior software developers, offering these incredibly lucrative, fully remote job opportunities.
Okay.
And as part of the standard interview process for a coding job, they would ask the developer to complete a technical assessment. like a take-home coding test.
Okay, wait, I got to push back here for a second. Wait, how does a single fake coding test lead to a global corporate crisis? I mean, developers run strange code all the time. They pull open source libraries from GitHub, they spin up Docker containers, they work in isolated test environments. It's quite literally their job to do that. Why is this one specific test so catastrophic to a network's architecture?
What's fascinating here is the sheer elegance of the trap.
Hmm.
The coding test itself was malicious, but it wasn't a clumsy, obvious virus that, trips an endpoint detection and response system immediately.
Oh, okay.
When a developer gets a coding test, they usually have to run a command like npm install to download the necessary software libraries to make the test work. And according to the Cypro analysis, the hackers hid their payload inside those initialization scripts.
Sneaky.
Very. The moment the developer ran that test, the malware utilized legitimate system administration utilities that are already present on the developer's machine, like PowerShell on Windows or Bash on macOS.
Ah, okay. So they aren't breaking the window to get into the house. They know you hide a spare key under the doormat, and they just use that. It just blends in with normal background processes.
Exactly. Security teams call that living off the land. Because the malware relies on native, legitimate tools, the security software often just ignores the activity. It thinks, oh, this is just the developer doing developer things.
Right.
But once activated in the background, the script executed automated credential theft. And it didn't just scrape passwords, it targeted session tokens and cloud access keys hidden in the developer's local environment files.
Oh, wow. Which means they bypass multi-factor authentication entirely. Because if you steal the session token, the system thinks you've already passed the fingerprint scan and the text message code.
Exactly. That is the deadliest part of this vector. The malware scraped those tokens and established persistent long-term access. I mean, Stykus saw instances in the command and control logs where these hackers were hiding inside corporate networks for months at a time. Months. Completely undetected, just navigating the internal systems using the stolen identities of trusted employees.
And the call is coming from inside the house. And they target software developers specifically because developers hold the keys to the kingdom.
They absolutely do.
They have access to the source code, the deployment servers, the cloud infrastructure. Compromise the developer, and you essentially compromise the core of the tech company.
Which brings us to the architecture of how we work today, and how this initial entry point cascades into something much, much larger. Because exploring that single developer getting hacked leads us straight into the devastating reality of the modern gig economy. We are talking about the multiplier effect here.
Right, the Trojan horse of independent IT contractors. Because the sources reveal that these North Korean groups weren't just tricking legitimate developers with fake interviews, they were actively getting their own operatives hired as fraudulent IT workers inside these companies.
Yes.
I mean, they aren't just sending a virus, they're literally getting put on the payroll.
Exactly. They are passing the technical interviews, they're signing the remote work contracts, and they're getting officially onboarded by HR departments. And if we connect this to the broader context of how modern independent contracting works, a single IT contractor rarely works for just one company.
That's true, yeah.
They juggle multiple clients, managing various staging and production environments simultaneously.
So they have a whole portfolio of companies they hold administrative rights for.
Right. And Stykus observed a truly chilling scenario during his 22-month investigation. He found a single infected contractor, and, whether they were a fraudulent North Korean operative or just a legitimate contractor who fell for that contagious interview, this one person had simultaneous authorized access to up to 30 different companies.
30 different corporate networks from one single laptop.
Yes. And this introduces the concept of the blast radius. In traditional cybersecurity, if a company gets breached, the blast radius is usually pretty contained to that specific organization. But in today's interconnected gig economy, a single compromise at the contractor level instantly cascades. The blast radius expands to dozens of high-value targets simultaneously.
Wow. Okay, that raises a massive operational question for me, though. If you are a North Korean hacking group and you have compromised hundreds of networks and you are managing fraudulent contractors who have access to dozens of companies, I mean, the sheer operational security required to pull that off is staggering.
Oh, it's immense.
How did they manage multiple server relays, input live commands, and constantly rotate their tools for 2 years without losing access to their own infrastructure?
Well, that is the central paradox of this whole story. On one hand, they made a total rookie mistake by infecting their own local machines, which allowed Stykus to watch them. But on the other hand,
The CIPRO report highlights their incredible persistence and technical adaptability. They were constantly rotating their command and control servers to evade IP blocking. They use these complex fast flux proxy networks to obscure their real geographic locations,
Just bouncing traffic across the globe.
bouncing it everywhere. And they were actively writing new scripts, pushing live updates to their malware to evade new antivirus signatures, and responding to corporate network defenses in real time. For 2 whole years, despite all this infrastructure rotation, they never lost their grip on the compromised networks.
It's like juggling chainsaws while blindfolded and never dropping one, except for that one time you tripped over your own foot and broadcast the whole routine on the internet.
That is a perfect way to put it.
But, we really can't let their one blunder minimize the absolute devastation they caused. Because here's where it gets really interesting and terrifying. With this contagious interview method laid out, the sheer scale of the global damage finally comes into sharp focus. The numbers from the Wired exclusive are just jaw-dropping. 1,640 companies compromised.
Yeah, across 57 different countries.
Unbelievable.
This wasn't a localized attack targeting a specific political enemy, right?
Yeah.
This was a global net cast as wide as possible just to harvest as much data and currency as they could.
And it wasn't just superficial access either. The severity of these intrusions is what really stands out in the reporting, because out of those 1,640 victims, Stichus found that between 700 to 800 companies suffered root-level system intrusions.
Yeah, which is the worst-case scenario.
Right, because getting root access isn't just sneaking into the corporate lobby. It's holding the master key, knowing the alarm codes, and having the administrative ability to basically wipe the security camera hard drives all at once.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. Root access means ultimate control. The hackers have the highest level of administrative privilege possible on a system. They can delete server logs to hide their tracks. They can install deep-seated backdoors that survive system reboots, alter the core operating system.
And lock out the actual legitimate IT administrators.
Exactly. And in this campaign, they gained root access to core data servers, to Amazon Web Services consoles, meaning they controlled the fundamental cloud infrastructure of these companies. And, perhaps most lucratively, they got access to highly valuable blockchain private keys.
Meaning they could literally just drain the crypto wallets directly, transferring millions in digital assets before anyone even noticed the intrusion.
Yeah. Once you have root, you own the machine. It is no longer the company server, it is the hacker's server.
Man, and I want to make sure you, the listener, realize this isn't just happening to, faceless defense contractors or obscure tech startups. The Wired piece and the subsequent disclosures name real-world victims, organizations you might interact with.
Major players.
Exactly. Publicly disclosed victims who cooperated with the disclosure include Boston Children's Hospital, Aeon Smart Technology, Oppo, the massive consumer electronics firm, Uniswap Labs.
Which is huge in the crypto space.
Huge. And get this, the Supreme Judicial Council of Italy, an Al Rajhi Bank subsidiary, and Digital Vlaanderen, which is the digital agency for the Flemish government in Belgium.
The victim list spans healthcare, finance, consumer electronics, decentralized finance, and international judiciary systems. It just proves that no sector is immune to this specific vector. If your organization hires software developers or if you rely on remote IT contractors for your infrastructure, you are a potential target of this North Korean infiltration campaign.
It is a really bleak picture, but there is a fascinating success story tucked into our sources today, coming directly from the Coinbase Consumer Protection blog.
Yeah, and this is where Stichus' quiet 22-month surveillance really paid off for the wider cybersecurity community. Coinbase published a blog post detailing how they actually detected and disrupted a contractor who perfectly matched this exact North Korean fraudulent hiring scheme.
So let's slow down and look at how that actually works in practice. How did a massive exchange like Coinbase catch an operative who is specifically trained to bypass traditional HR screening?
Well, because Vangelis Stichus had been inside the hacker's network, he was able to extract specific indicators of compromise, or IOCs. These are technical breadcrumbs, right? Like specific malicious IP addresses used by the command and control servers, or the behavioral signatures of the scripts hidden inside those coding tests.
Right.
He shared this intelligence with the broader security community, and Coinbase took those specific indicators and fed them directly into their internal monitoring systems.
So they basically set a highly specific trap based on Stichus's blueprint.
Precisely. A fraudulent contractor applied for a role at Coinbase. They likely passed the initial resume screens and the non-technical interviews. But when they reached the technical onboarding or assessment phase, the automated monitoring systems caught the exact behavioral signature Steikas had warned the industry about. Coinbase isolated the environment instantly. They stopped the threat in its tracks before the operative could establish any legitimate network credentials, let alone that deadly root-level access.
I mean, it's a massive win. It shows that when cybersecurity researchers and major corporations actively communicate and share granular intelligence, these advanced persistent threats can actually be neutralized.
It is a textbook example of proactive defense.
Mm.
But it also highlights the constant vigilance required in a remote-first world, right? Because Coinbase caught this operative because they had the intelligence in the infrastructure to monitor behavioral anomalies. And it really makes you wonder how many operatives slipped through the cracks at other companies before Steikas published his findings.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
Hmm.
So what does this all mean for you and your organization? How do you actually protect a network against an enemy that is literally applying for jobs in your HR department? The CyPro Bulletin outlines a few core practices, but it really boils down to abandoning the old model of cybersecurity. You can no longer just build a strong firewall and assume everyone inside the network is safe.
No, absolutely not. You have to adopt what the industry prefers, zero-trust architecture. It is a massive paradigm shift where you just assume the threat is already inside the network. You must constantly review user activity logs for unusual behavioral patterns. I mean, if a contractor who normally works on front-end code from London is suddenly querying core AWS databases from an IP address in Southeast Asia at 3 a.m., that cannot just be a logged event.
Right. Someone looking at it the next day is too late.
Exactly. It needs to trigger an immediate automated access block.
You also have to aggressively patch critical software vulnerabilities. The absolute moment updates are available because the hackers used unpatched native software to escalate their privileges once they got a foothold via that coding test. If the software had been patched, the blast radius would have been significantly reduced.
Sure.
And beyond that, if you or your organization are feeling overwhelmed by the sheer sophistication of these threats, and frankly you should be, there is help available. You do not have to fight state-sponsored hackers alone. We want to specifically mention that CyberKnight Mike is available for hire as a cyber defender.
Oh, that's a great resource.
Yeah, CyberKnight Mike has the expertise to help organizations proactively protect themselves against these exact types of complex infiltration campaigns, to audit your remote workforce security, and just to make sure your company doesn't become a statistic in the next massive Wired exclusive.
Because having dedicated expert cyber defense is a fundamental requirement of doing business in a digital world today. And this entire investigation raises a deeply critical question, and it's a thought I want to leave our listeners with today. Just think about the tools that allowed this North Korean campaign to thrive. Collaboration apps like Slack and Discord, cross-company contracting, digital HR onboarding, fully remote technical assessments.
The exact same tools that kept the global economy running over the last few years.
The very tools that enable our global, flexible remote workforce are simultaneously our biggest vulnerabilities. They are the exact vectors the hackers use to compromise 1,640 companies across 57 countries. It forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. In a fully remote, globalized digital economy, how do you actually verify the true identity of the human being sitting on the other side of the screen?
That is the million-dollar question right there. Or I guess in the case of those drained crypto wallets, the multi-million-dollar question. Because at the end of the day, you might think you are hiring a brilliant new senior developer to help build your company's future infrastructure, but you might actually be handing the keys to your digital vault straight to that master bank robber. You just have to hope they're clumsy enough to leave their webcam on.
A chilling reality.
It really is. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay safe out there, verify those recruiters. I'll see you next time.